for a quorum. So are we okay to get started then? Okay. Welcome everybody to the Town of Riverdale Park Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Advisory Committee. Glad to have everybody this evening. And everybody should have a copy of the agenda. And I guess I have to call the meeting to order. So I call this meeting to order. Everybody should have a copy of the agenda in front of them. Thank you for sharing it online. Does anybody have amendments to the agenda? There are no amendments. Can we have a motion to accept the agenda as is?
I make a motion to accept.
Thank you. I don't know who that was.
It's Mike.
That was Mike.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second, Dan Barron.
Thanks, Dan. And does anybody have any conflicts of interest with any of the agenda items that we have? Do we need to do a roll call for that or anything?
You could just take a vote or ask if there are any objections to approving the agenda.
Okay. Are there any, well, I guess we could just, are there any objections to approving the agenda? Everybody who approves, say aye.
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 Anybody who opposes, please say no. Okay. And if you said no, you were on mute. So with that, we're going to approve the agenda and move forward. We have several discussion items, and town staff is going to talk to us again about our mission and what the scope of our Walk, Bike, Drive Advisory Committee is. So, no.
Yeah, so if it pleases the chair, I'll cover this. And so just wanted to take a few minutes, and I've talked with Melissa, and I had a conversation with Dan the other day, and then with Mike as well, on committee matters. And the one thing that we want to talk about is just to review the purpose that the mayor and council put in the resolution that created the committee. And it's to provide advice to both the mayor and council and to town staff on the annual capital improvement plan, the projects involved in there that are related to the Walk, Bike, Drive program, as well as on programs and plans related to the Walk, Bike, Drive initiative, including but not limited to goals, actions, milestones for those programs and policies. And so I just wanted to add an editorial comment or two. We're learning as we go. And on behalf of the staff team, I would ask that we be patient with ourselves and each other. That's a term that my leadership team hears from me quite often. In times of change, be patient with yourself and each other, because we have to, on the staff side, be more clear in our communication on whether we're giving something to you as informational or what type of feedback we are seeking. And we also have to develop processes for you to provide input for us. And we don't have all those things readily made. And so as we work together through this, I just ask for your patience, and I dedicate here that we'll be committed to creating those processes and be more clear in our communication. And those are the things I wanted to share as it relates to why we're here and how the staff team is going to help try to facilitate your work.
Okay, thank you. And I think we probably need to hear that a few times in the future, because we have a lot of people with really awesome, great ideas, and there's a lot of ambition, and we really have kind of a limited scope to our committee, but we're definitely not going to be a token committee. We're going to have work to do. And so we need, I guess our next step is to select a committee vice chair. Unless, should we go through Mike's scope, our goals and objectives now, or should we wait?
However you choose to handle that, ma'am.
Okay. Why not, since we're talking about goals and objectives for the committee, Mike Culp has put together a really nice list of goals and objectives, and I think it pretty clearly reflects some of the information that we've been given from town staff. So I think Mike's gonna he's put together a draft. I think he's open to our input, and he's gonna kind of walk us through it. So Mike, floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. So just to try to put some form to the activities of the committee, and goals and objectives are always really helpful to put them down in writing, because they help both the committee but also other folks understand what the committee is trying to do or accomplish. And so I just had listened to all of the good kind of input and and suggestions and the discussion we had on the last call, and thought I would try to create like a structure or a rubric to try to capture some of those things. And so I did that, and I sent this draft along, and subsequently I've had conversations with town staff and a few other folks about maybe some potential improvements to this. And one thing I would just hearken back to, and that you may not find in here in all cases, because this was put together in kind of a short order, was basically that the key phrase that was in the charter of the committee is advise council and town staff to, and then to do these things. And so one of the things that, and I'll just verbally insert that in a couple of places, because I didn't include that in some of the goals, and so one of the things that it kind of made the appearance of that is the committee was acting on its own, which is not the case. The committee is supposed to advise the town council and the town staff on topics, on technical topics, or whatever we have expertise to offer. So that was really the one of the main comments. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to slightly revise this to reflect the comments I've already received. And then my plan was that I would recirculate it back to the committee for comment. And so, but I can just talk, sorry, can you bring that back up? Was that Jessica? You had that up? Sorry. I was just going to go over just a super high level and just let people know kind of generally what the structure was. So the goals are really the numbers, right? So that we have 3. And so the first is advising the staff and the council on key programs and projects. That was in the charter specifically. And what I tried to do was provide a few objectives that focuses in on specific types of projects or types of activities. So that's what's going to be captured underneath goal 1. So if you could skip down to number 2, this is basically we're not directly engaging with residents. We're working with the town staff and the council to do engagement with residents on issues and initiatives. And so there's a couple of ideas that had come up previously. One was pursuing League of American Bicyclists certification, for example, or supporting the safety, the culture of safety initiative that the town staff had talked about. So again, just there's going to be some tweaks here. It's going to kind of more focus on providing, support to the town staff and town council on those types of initiatives. And then number 3 is going to require probably the more tweaking, but basically it's, supporting the council and the town staff in engaging in other types of activities. So if it's like writing a letter of support to SHA on a particular project, we could advise the council, we could advise the town staff, we could even draft letters for consideration. But of course, we don't send the letters. We would provide the town staff with the letters and things like that. So generally that's the structure. And, I don't want to take our precious time reading through every word, but what I will say is I'm going to make some changes to this and I will resend it back out to the committee for comment. And Melissa, I don't know if this seems appropriate, but one of the things to kind of move this type of document along would be to give kind of a deadline for getting comments back. If we would like to look at another version by our next meeting, would it be reasonable to ask for folks to provide comments on this? And when's our next meeting, by the way? I'm sorry.
The next meeting is the I don't know. Oh, I guess
Jessica.
at the bottom of the agenda,
18th
Okay, so it's
November.
November
When's-
18th.
November 18th. Okay, so is that's 4 full weeks, I think. Maybe. So why don't we do this? Melissa and I will talk about it and we'll put it in the email when we're circulating at a due date. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds fine. And we can make it available
Through the Dropbox.
through the Dropbox.
Yeah, sorry to fill in your, sorry.
Oh, you're good. I was waiting. That was my thought too, but I was waiting to see if Jessica was going to tell us a better place.
Okay, so I will, so we've got a little bit of work to do, but then recirculate this, and I would ask for written comments because it's hard to do everything verbally. So written comments would be appreciated, and then we can discuss the input at the next meeting, and we may even have a revised draft to discuss. So that's the end of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me take a few notes as we go along. Thank you, Mike. And our next item is selection of a committee vice chair. So is anyone interested in volunteering for that position, or? We've had several people who have had a lot of really good ideas. And Dan, I see your hand is raised.
If others are interested, certainly we'll defer to them, but I'm happy to help if others are not interested, and happy to help you, Melissa, with any tasks that might be useful.
Does that mean you're officially volunteering, Dan?
Yes, with qualifications, but yes.
Is anyone else interested? We can have a knockdown, drag out election here. And if there are hands raised, I don't see them. So I'm not sure how we do this to make to take a vote.
Maybe I make a motion to nominate Dan or have Dan assigned as vice chair.
Sounds good. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Jeffrey York. Did you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you,
Okay.
Mike. And thank
Okay.
you very much, Dan. You are now the elected vice chair of the committee. Thank you.
And you have my 100% support.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna, I think Ivy is gonna lead us in an overview of the CIP budget process, or might be someone.
Yes, actually, I'm gonna
Okay.
take that because Ivy has plenty of other stuff she's gonna go over here in a little bit. So CIP, how's it developed? And where are we going, I guess, with our CIP program? So a little bit of history. Historically, the town didn't have much of a CIP program. And there'd be an occasional project done here or there, but there wasn't much rhyme or reason for selecting different projects. And this is a work in progress, and where we want to get to is to have a vibrant pipeline of projects that are funded and that move us forward, specifically in the walk, bike, drive area, but we carry out other types of projects as well. And walk, bike, drive elements are in other projects. So we could have a park project, but that's related to walk, bike, drive. We can have a lighting project that's related to walk, bike, drive. And so the way projects are developed in town is that the staff team works together, and we do receive input from our residents. We ask for input from residents, and we also see from our own observation, as well as we've had surveys conducted both internally and using various vendors to provide their thoughts on things that we should do. We also listen carefully to the mayor and council as they talk about community needs. And we look at the town's vision and commitment statements. And we, on the staff level, develop a list and we say, here's things we would like to accomplish. And so if you look at our current CIP, whether it's the Pocket Park on 54th Place or Adam and Emily Plummer Park, or some of the street projects, the Natoli Place, the trolley trail realignment, the lighting on the trolley trail, the lighting that's we're going to be talking to the council about here in a few weeks on Lafayette Place, because we did secure federal funding for that. All these ideas are circulating in conversation. And then my job is to present an annual budget to the mayor and council that's balanced. And so we take all the ideas and we look at funding sources and we look at needs and how the town can be most responsive to its residents. And with that, we put together proposed projects. And Director Lewis talks with engineers, and we try to get our best guess on prices. And prices have changed a lot during the last 5 years. And so things are requiring more funds. And we put together our best guess on an individual project, and we categorize these projects and I want to differentiate from acquisitions because CIP also includes buying vehicles and buying equipment and things like that. But on the project side, we put together our best guess and we present it to the council. And so we will be talking to the council in January about CIP. At least that's our preliminary schedule for fiscal 26. That's our first discussion with them on CIP. And but in November, so just next month, we're scheduled to at the end of November to give an update to the council on where we are with our current projects. So I mentioned the word pipeline at the beginning. Vast majority of our projects are multi-year projects. Just dealing with the regulatory environment in Prince George's County, it can take well over a year to navigate their process. And that's unfortunate, but that's what the process is. So we have projects where we would love to see them come to fruition much more quickly, but going through the county processes really slows things down. And there's even a process called mandatory referral, where these are projects that have to go through the planning side of the process. And Ivy, if I have any of this wrong, correct me. And at the end of the process, even though they can make us jump through a bunch of hoops over the course of months or more than a year, at the end of the day, we don't have to follow what they tell us. But we have to go through the mandatory referral process. And so there's the park and planning side, or the planning side, and then there's the DPI side of things, as well as environment side of things when it comes to any sort of grading or disturbing soil and stormwater management and all that kind of stuff. And but so we develop a pipeline, and so we will every year recommend new projects. That doesn't mean that project's going to be completed in that fiscal year, but we begin the cycle of funding for the project. And we also have a person dedicated to grants now, and we will have Laverne focus then on looking for funding for future phases. That's the other thing that we do with a lot of our projects is we phase the projects. If we have a good idea and the community would like to see things, whatever the project happens to be, and we say, all right, where are we? How do we get there? And what can we do in fiscal 26, for example, and to further it, and then in 27 and in 28, and maybe a project won't be delivered fully until 29. And that's not unusual for how government projects happen, much like the Tolley Place and the trolley trail. That came about from discussions, as I understand it. The mayor says some of those discussions date back perhaps close to 20 years on the Tolley Place realignment. And what we did, my team looked at it and said, how can we make this happen? And so we looked at funding. And we managed with some of the funds that we accepted as revenue replacement from ARPA. We put some monies aside and took it to the council and said, we actually think you can do a realignment, and there's money here to fund it. And the council supported that. The same with the trolley trail. It was like a stated need. I think there was strong community support. And so the staff team looked at it from a couple different angles, said, how are we going to fund this? And a gift happened. And that is that Park and Planning received a bond bill for trolley trail improvements in Riverdale Park. And it was a bond bill they didn't ask for. And so we worked with Park and Planning and with the state and had the bond bill transferred over to the town. The state did take some money out of the bond bill. It initially was $1 million, and they removed 150,000 from it. And but so we look for opportunities to build a multi-year pipeline of projects and to receive input prior to this committee, to receive input from residents, from anyone who attends any of the public meetings we have. Because while we will talk to the mayor and council in January about CIP, we will have, I believe it's 14 budget meetings between the end of November and the budget adoption. And in those meetings, anyone is welcome to share their thoughts. And what we envision now that we have this committee is developing a vehicle to share information, as well as to solicit ideas about what projects we should have in the pipeline, and priority of projects, because decisions are made about funding, and we're always limited by what we're able to fund in a given year, as well as input on design and on various stages throughout the project. So those are the things that we have to work on to develop those systems to make it easy. But that's kind of a high-level overview of our current CIP. And my hope is that we develop a 5-year pipeline. That's our goal, is to have a 5-year pipeline of projects. And we're not there yet. We're projecting out. And I think most of our projects, Ivy, are about 3.5, 4-year projects.
Between 2 and 4 years.
Yes.
Mhm.
Now, that the exception to that are the annual street projects. So the annual street projects, we receive some highway user funds. We put general fund dollars towards those as well, and any grant monies that we may find. And like last year, I believe we carried out 17 projects for our streets and sidewalks. And we've been really quite good, I would say, in securing federal dollars. We get on average at least 150,000 a year, and I mentioned we just received 195,000 for this lighting project on Lafayette. So with that, I'll take questions on what kind of the process is. If there are questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Steve?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I guess not a general process question, but specific to the Safe Streets for All grant. As I understand it, the town has secured its funding agreement with the federal government. What are the next steps in moving towards
In moving towards, and you cut off, I didn't hear your full question. You're muted, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Must have hit my mouse button. So yeah, what are the next steps towards I guess moving towards some of the implementation, rapid implementation demonstration projects, or further projects that we might request additional Safe Streets for All funding for?
Madam Chair, we're fine answering that. It's not on your agenda point, so I just want to make sure I don't want to take time.
No, I think no, I think it would be good for us to hear the answer to
Okay.
that. maybe briefly if it's
Yep.
actually very lengthy.
Ivy, do you want to give a quick update?
Just a overview of what the grant covers. Our grant covers supplemental planning. As a part of our application, the council adopted the county's Vision Zero plan. It was what qualified us for the supplemental grant. The other component of this grant is the quick build projects. And so we've just, Laverne Peaks and I put together a scope of work and cost proposal request from one of our engineers to actually complete the walk, bike, drive plan, which is the town's Vision Zero plan, aligning that plan with the county's Vision Zero plan. And as part of that process to identify quick build projects for 21 locations and have the engineers then design those projects and oversee their implementation. So at this point, we just put together a request for a proposal today and actually submitted it to one of our on-call engineers. We have asked for the proposal by midday on October 31st with the intention of taking that proposal to council on, believe that's November 4th is the next legislative meeting. And so you'll see a lot of activity initially on planning, general planning, outreach and engagement among residents across the community, but especially along our high injury network, which are largely our state roads, to get inputs on their concerns and any ideas that they have, and actually collect community input on issues and how we might address them, and then consolidated that information into the plan document. At the end of the day, we'll have an implementation plan of what has come out of that planning process, activities, responsible parties, time frame for completing it, how to evaluate the effectiveness of each of the recommendations that are included in the action plan, so that we cover sort of soup to nuts in terms of what we want to achieve through this walk, bike, drive program. What we'd like to do is complete this phase within 6 to 9 months, and during that time actually apply for implementation money. I was at a planning meeting a couple of Fridays ago, and one of the speakers says, we have no idea how long the federal money is going to last for this program. So we want to get in as early as possible to get implementation money, because right now our grant covers supplemental planning and quick build projects and any studies we want to conduct to identify better ways to address some of our safety initiatives.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate the answer.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't see who was first, Mike or Dan?
Dan was first.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to ask a follow-up question. So I'm sorry, I got a little lost in the description, but for the supplemental planning, the town will have a specific action plan that's developed out of the grant, is kind of what I'm hearing. And is that the RFP that went to the on-call engineers, or will that be bid out? I know a lot of the other municipalities in Maryland have hired some of the kind of premier firms on multimodal transportation, like Tool Design and Kittleson Associates and others. I'm just wondering if we'll have an opportunity to hear potential bids from them, or is this already kind of directed towards our on-call engineers? And then also with the 21 projects, those have not been identified yet, right? That would be part of the action planning process. Is that correct?
The 21 locations for quick build projects have not been identified. We'll do that as part of the planning process. And so the request that we put together today went to one of our on-call engineers. This firm, Pannoni, has a planning function, transportation function, and engineering. And I expect that all of those units will be involved in this project.
And Ivy, for my own clarity as well, but when we get to the implementation, will be that doesn't mean Pannoni has that aspect of the project.
No, they wouldn't do the implementation of the quick build projects.
Oh, no, but I
Yeah.
mean, the
Mhm.
implementation grant.
Oh, right.
That would be a separate process.
That would be a separate process. Yes.
So it sounds like the on-contract engineer will do our action plan, and there's a chance that the town will bid out the design for the locations identified for quick build. Is that what I?
So again, the quick build is part of this supplemental planning process and are intended to be just demonstration projects. And the planning process will include an evaluation of the effectiveness of those quick build projects. It's the implementation money that will go out, to go after the first opportunity that will build permanent projects, for which we'll have to solicit proposals for carrying out those projects. I will remind you that the town just recently entered into an agreement with 3 construction companies, and we'll likely use them to actually build out these permanent projects, if that's clear.
Yeah, that's clear. I guess just I know you all have history, and as town manager mentioned, a lot of these projects are going on years of implementation, but I would just encourage us to consider in the future when we have planning opportunities to maybe see if some of these other firms might be available. I know the folks that have worked in the town are reputable and good, but there are some really great firms out there that might be able to help us look at things from a different angle.
Okay.
Well, and what I would add to that, if I may, Ivy, we have a solicitation going out now for on-call engineers, correct?
Yes.
So, Dan, if there are firms that we should be encouraging to participate in that process, if you can send us the names of those firms, because we developed this process of having on call so we could handle things more quickly.
Definitely.
As a small jurisdiction, unfortunately, at times, depending on the project, sometimes we get a really good response to our invitations to bid and our RFPs, and other times we'll go out 2 or 3 times and not receive a reply or a responsive reply. And so we had checked with the feds to see if we could use an on-call, and part of that was concerned with time.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for the clarification. And I'll send those the couple. I know like Mount Rainier and Hyattsville and Greenbelt and College Park have hired them, and I think sounds like they've had to kind of reach out to them directly to encourage them to.
Yep.
They are.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you could send those and because we'd love to have them on our list.
Yeah.
Mike. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dan. Mike.
Yeah, thank you. I think my question was related to this is this is a good example of and I think maybe part of there may be a little bit of confusion on the committee. So one of the things that's not clear is how the committee can bring whatever suggestions, expertise, et cetera, kind of to this process, and like where are those points where it would be good to for us to maybe be able to provide some input. And I don't know if that's the quick start projects, or I'm probably using all the wrong words, but quick start projects versus the plan versus the procurement process that's leading to the plan, or is it it's not clear to me how we meaningfully like engage in this process, because I think this is a really interesting project for the committee. I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think generally everybody's really interested in this project, and so I guess the question is how, and we don't have to answer it like right now, but I think one of the things it would be great to hear like where are those points where we can bring recommendations or suggestions or other things to engage in this project. Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
It does to
Right.
me. Ivy?
Well, again, I mean, this body meets monthly, and we could bring this project to every meeting and just present information we've gathered at that point from members of the community, solicit your input on what some of the sort of key safety issues are and suggestions you might have for addressing them, suggestions you might have for where we might look for those 21 locations and what quick build projects that we would recommend there based on the issues.
Okay. Yeah, Director Lewis, that's really helpful. So, I would just maybe recommend that we identify this as like an action item. I don't know if that's the right term for the committee members that, in whatever stage it's appropriate, that, we could as a committee work to assemble recommendations or make recommendations or whatever for the, just for example, the 21 locations. I bet like everybody's got an idea about what one of the 21 locations might be. So, anyway, if that makes sense, we maybe identify, Melissa, that as a action item so that we can make sure we don't, because monthly, we'll show up again and then we'll get an update. And then of course the project will have moved and then the opportunity to engage has passed. And we didn't necessarily intentionally like let it pass. We just didn't know that the timing was, current. You have to provide input by X date before. So that might be a good thing to follow up and kind of stay engaged with the town staff on, but appreciate all that you do. And I know that it's like we're trying to catch a moving train, and I know the train's moving. So thank you.
So we can certainly share the engineer's proposal with the committee. That should include a schedule so that you could see when certain actions are expected or components of the project to be completed. If I may share my screen for just a moment to just go through really quickly what we've asked the engineer for. Let me know. Are you seeing?
Yes.
The document? Okay. So I'm going to really focus in on the scope of work. So this task 1 involves completing the walk bike drive plan, again, which is the town's version of Vision Zero. We're asking the engineer to develop vision, goals, objectives, and strategies for the town's 6 essential elements. You recall these: education, environmental enhancement, engineering, enforcement, equity, and evaluation. So a lot of the plan will be centered around these 6 elements. Develop a plan for outreach and engaging the public, and then sort of summarizing community input, not just what some of the concerns are, but what ideas community members might have for addressing those concerns. And then identifying key safety issues, sort of what is Vision Zero or Walk Bike Drive? What issues are we trying to address in Riverdale Park? What are the challenges and opportunity? We're going to look at crash history, this data we have, and the high injury network, common factors in serious and fatal crashes. I don't think we have this information unique to Riverdale Park, but we might be able to extrapolate from other sources, sort of what those common factors are in case there's a physical or environmental or engineering solution to it, identifying vulnerable populations, hotspots, and opportunities, and then looking at overlapping jurisdiction and how that might help or challenge our efforts, and then focus areas for improvements, and then describing the location of the quick build projects and evaluating the impact of those projects, again, as a part of the planning process, and then creating an action plan or matrix in the planning document that, is our action plan, is the steps we think we can take to improve safety in town. And then I won't go in through the others in so much detail, but again, this public outreach and engagement strategy, and then identifying these 23 locations and specific quick build projects that would be beneficial at those locations, and then evaluating the impact. And the proposal is due on the 31st.
And Ivy, just so I'm clear, I think it may help the committee as well. There will be a draft report that before a final report, and the committee will be able to take a look at that and provide any input at that time as well. I
And we
imagine
can
that's
anticipate bringing pieces of this as they're completed by the engineer to
Yes.
the committee. So we're not waiting until we have a fully
Yep.
drafted plan for
Okay.
that review and input. Mhm.
great. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move along to, and thank you for that, because that was really helpful to hear. To our review of proposed 2025 street and sidewalk projects.
So as the manager mentioned, one of our CIP projects is streets and sidewalks, and staff is currently putting together the FY 2025 list of road improvement projects. In fact, I believe you received the list that the engineer has put together. There were 3 documents. One sidewalks and road improvements and crosswalks, another with a list of locations for either repair or installation of new curb ramps, and then locations for new or refreshed crosswalks. I didn't intend to go through all of this. This is a pretty simple documents to get through. What I was hoping to get was additional project or improvement ideas that you have. I did receive, Dan, your list, and Mike, your list as well as the information that has come through the new safety email. And I believe Jessica put a packet in your, distributed a packet of those issues and the staff's at least preliminary response. John mentioned the number of projects we completed in past years. I think I recall or sharing with you at a recent meeting that we did a townwide road assessment program in FY 2022, and this is the 3rd year of our road improvement program, still addressing issues that were identified in that assessment. For this year, as I mentioned, really focusing on missing sidewalks and sidewalk repairs. I don't know if I shared this when we met last time, that the town did complete a townwide sidewalk, curb and gutter and crosswalk survey. And some of these sidewalk projects are from that list. That's a multi-year work program to get through all of our sidewalk improvements and installations. So this round of projects, I think Wastemore includes a longer list of sidewalk projects, as well as curb ramps and crosswalks. There are several road improvement projects, primarily on 48th and 49th Streets between Tuckerman and 410. If you're familiar with Maryland Avenue, also known as Rhode Island Avenue, it is currently on substandard along its entire length outside of Riverdale Park Station. It's actually in the worst condition of any street in town, yet that road is not included in this year's road improvement project either. Instead, we're hoping that through the town center parking lot redesign, we can plan for the upgrade of that roadway. I guess, and with that, I'll take any suggestions you have for other projects to put on the list, or any questions you have about these lists.
Does anybody else have questions or comments? So I have a question on how some of these, so specifically, how how were these chosen? Like the curb ramp replacements, how are these chosen over other areas in town?
So again, go back to when we did the town-wide road assessment project, the engineers, so we purchased an app called Robotics that allowed us to collect road condition data in the field. Using this application, it collected information every 10 feet. And the engineers supplemented that with drive-through town over the last 3 years. And so a number of road improvement projects were identified through the robotics, and then from field verifications for crosswalks, curb ramps where they were missing, where they were in poor condition, and where they needed to be upgraded. So these were considered the next list of priority locations for curb ramps and crosswalks. We know we have an issue throughout town with faded crosswalks. We've moved from a ladder to a continental crosswalk design, and less than probably 10% of our crosswalks are of that new design. So we are putting together a multi-year program for completing curb ramps and crosswalks throughout town. And so these, again, were considered the priorities this time around. But
So
if there are others that you're aware of, please share those.
is that based on their condition or their location to public facilities or pedestrian volumes or?
They're conditioned primarily in high pedestrian locations initially. Does that address your question?
It does. It does. Thank you. Mike?
Again, if you have other locations than what included on the list, please feel free to share that information.
Like you said, they're town-wide issues, so I assume this is what we can do this year, and next year there'll be a new list. Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. So I think the when I went in and looked at the inquiries from the safety, so this is a good thing probably for the committee to focus in on, because I had initially missed that item in the meeting materials. So when something comes into the safety, using the safety email, I can't remember the address now, but I've used it, so I should remember it. But the safety email for the walk, bike, drive initiative, the safety improvements to the town. I submitted some. I think Dan did as well, and also some other folks have submitted things. And so there's a table in one of the attachments that shows this is the inquiry that we received, or the suggestion, or whatever. And then here's the disposition of the staff on that specific issue, or what we're recommending for addressing it, or whatever. So it might be good to, for the committee members, I'm not suggesting that everyone didn't do their homework, like I evidently didn't do mine, but that attachment's probably a nice one to look at, because it does have specific, line by line, tracking of those things. So one of the things that I noticed in one of the entries was that the town would consider these additional things when you're putting together your list, right? So would it be safe to say that just say Melissa's walking around town and she recognizes that maybe there's an accessibility issue with regards to a crossing or a curb ramp, in a fairly high demand location. So if she makes a recommendation, then that could be double checked against the list. And if it makes sense, it could be prioritized. Is that a fair way to characterize the process?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Does that help everybody? Because I'm trying to negotiate this like everybody is. So, it's the recommendations come in, and the idea is that, if it seems like it's a super important thing, then we can advocate for that, and potentially it can be elevated in priority. Because whenever you do the whole the whole town. I mean, things they're not always missed, or something may have changed at those locations. A curb was replaced in where something was done, and it doesn't quite work the way that it was meant to, or whatever the issue is. But is that a fair way? Okay, so that seems like it's a fair way to characterize. So I made some recommendations just on streets where I was walking, where I noticed that there was the whole section of the sidewalk was just simply missing. And so, yeah, sorry, my dog is agreeing with me, but anyway, so y'all can consider that as part of the plan the list that you're putting together. And it may not make the list this time, but at least you'll have it recorded, and maybe it'll make it another time.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dan, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, just a kind of related question. So I know the town has some kind of larger CIP projects in the works, and that takes a lot of capacity and staff time to navigate through all the different steps that you have to go through. And as I think town manager and Ivy have explained, it's a multi-year process for some of those. For somewhat smaller things, and I guess I'm using that relatively because I guess everything can be a bigger issue, it just depends. But like the example Mike gave, like there's like somebody dug out part of the sidewalk when they replaced a sewer line, and that gap has been there for the 12 years that I've been living here. That seems like something that's like more of a fix rather than a larger CIP project. Are those maybe not easier, but not as involved projects? Do those have to compete against these larger projects for priority and things? Are there types of smaller fixes that the town's going to be doing kind of concurrent with some of these larger projects that are going on?
If I could make a quick comment, and then Ivy specific, if you can address. So I would say that the small things like that are not in direct competition with our larger projects. I'm unaware of the area that you're talking about with the missing sidewalk, but that's something that can just get added to a list. And now that we have on-call construction folks, the whole theory behind that is to be able to address things quickly, and not because we don't have the staff to handle that internally like some larger jurisdictions do, but to be able to address stuff like that quickly. Ivy, did you have anything?
No, I would just add those things. So I've gotten several emails from the safety email address, and I forwarded them to the ops manager to address. I mean, they don't need to even make it on this list. It's something that we can take care of fairly quickly. And when we can, those will get pushed out through the department. Otherwise, they'll go on this list for the next round of projects. So it really depends on, whether it's a simple fix that the staff can go out, paint a curb, we could do that fairly quickly. Pouring sidewalks, again, we can get for infill sidewalks, we can get out on call. If engineering is not involved, we should be able to get to it and do fairly quickly. So where engineering is involved, it'll go on this year's list of road projects. And I use that term obviously loosely because it includes sidewalks, curb ramps, and crosswalks. Dan,
can you tell us where this area is?
Yeah, it's in front of the Volunteers of America group home.
Okay.
It looks like it looks like somebody repaired a sewer or water line a while ago. It's like maybe
that's just over
a gap
DuPont
in the
Circle?
sidewalk. Yeah, it's right off DuPont Circle on Cleveland Avenue.
And that's exactly the one that I included the picture of. This is the same location.
Yeah. Ivy, can we just have somebody go take care of that?
So yeah.
And I didn't mean to pressure you on that particular one. I was just wondering if
you all want
small suggestions, as well as some of what Ivy's asking us about CIP projects. Those seem like a little bit more involved, whereas for the safety, just keep emailing suggestions and the town will triage those as appropriate, is kind of what I heard.
Yes.
So we
and-
have a short list of projects that are going to precede this longer list, and one of them includes an infill sidewalk project. So we could certainly add this one to this preliminary list that I'm going to give to one of our on-call construction companies within the next 5 to 10 days. So it's likely we can get that taken care of before the end of the year, along with some curb ramps that we'd identified earlier as sort of priority ahead of this list.
Thank you for all that clarification. Appreciate
Mhm.
Yep.
Thank you.
And if I could just jump in, this is good clarification. So it sounds like there are kind of a couple of different tracks in which things could happen. One, if it's an inherently kind of small fix, or it could be channeled to the operations contractor. I think you use that. Okay.
Well,
And
actually DPW staff.
oh, DPW staff. Okay.
For the simplest projects, the staff and Public Works can manage.
But like if it's pouring a small section of concrete, that would likely go to the
Yes,
contractor.
on-call
Okay.
contractors, yes.
And so, yeah, so we may be on a little bit of a learning curve here just to understand like what is the scale of one type of fix versus another type of fix, but we can just keep reporting them, and that's what you do.
Yes.
You figure out which way
Right.
it goes. Anyway, okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And we don't have any more comments.
So, Madam Chair, staff is going to the council on October 28th with a presentation of the road improvement project recommendations for FY25. So what we've received so far will be added to the list that the engineer prepared and packaged and sent to the council for Monday's council meeting.
Okay.
And so if there are additional items you want us to consider, if you can get those to me as soon as possible, no later than this Wednesday, would be helpful.
That would be tomorrow, correct?
Is today Tuesday already?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Days.
I was going to say I lost the day.
Okay.
I've just had mine all folded up and scribbled together. So yeah, so 2 days. I may have some to contribute.
Okay.
And is there any benefit to our committee members ever attending the council meetings? I mean, I know they're open to the public and everyone's encouraged, but is there any specific benefit to us attending?
I would simply say that I think anytime that the council is considering something related to walk, bike, drive, if members are able to attend, in case the council members have a question from a committee member or whoever's representing the committee at a meeting, I think that always helps.
Okay. Thank you. And I think we're ready for item number 5. So would staff like to tell us about our upcoming community engagement and outreach efforts?
Certainly, I'd be happy to talk about the town's ongoing engagement efforts and community outreach. I did want to just briefly go over a couple of the tools that we use just to make sure that everybody's familiar with them. Of course, the Town Crier is our newsletter that comes out monthly. We have 2 double editions, one that's in December, January, and then a July, August edition, of course, new in the last year or so. It's also printed in Spanish. So we really worked very hard to make sure that we have resources in both languages. In each of the editions of the Town Crier, there is typically something related to walk, bike, drive. We typically do something seasonal. We were just discussing how leaf collection and leaves piling up on the sidewalks can cause slip hazards and things like that. So we're continuing with our theme of keeping our sidewalks clear. Just a little bit of what we'll be covering in November. The status and information report is a biweekly report that goes to the mayor and council and is shared with the community, also in English and in Spanish, but there's a lot of good information, a lot of statistics. There's a lot of information from the police department. So if you're not familiar with that tool, I can send you a quick link to where it is on the website, but we also share that on our social media platforms. In the last, I would say, year, we've rolled out our constant contact email listserv. And if you weren't on there prior to the last meeting, you have now been added to receive the town's constant contact emails. So that's more timely information because it comes out weekly, usually towards the end of the week, but it covers all sorts of important information, not just about the town, but about the community and other events that are of interest to residents. Of course, we have our social media platforms. I know not everybody uses social media, so typically the constant contact tries to fill that gap of providing the timely information on a weekly basis. And the town has walk and talks and community conversations. We'll have a full schedule or proposed schedule for the mayor and council on the 28th. And hopefully everyone will mark their calendars at that point so that they can be there for those meetings. Those are all opportunities to talk about walk, bike, drive, and we try to use every opportunity we have with our residents to talk about that. It is a priority for the town. We have 2 events coming up. We have next weekend is the Riverdale Park Station Fall Block Party. That would be an opportunity to talk to our residents face to face about walk, bike, drive, safety related topics. And we'd like to invite the committee to be part of that. The event's from 12 to 5. And if anyone is available and would like to participate, please send me a quick email and we can schedule a time that works for you. We also have a kickoff event, a holiday season kickoff event on Small Business Saturday, which is November the 30th. And that's from 4 to 7 in Town Center. And that'll be another great opportunity to talk about the topics that are important to the advisory committee. And so again, if you'd like to participate in either one of those events, please send me an email and we will make sure to get you on, get you signed up.
Thank
And
you.
if I could add a few things to Jessica's presentation, I'm sorry I had to step away for a moment. Another thing that we're working on is a landing page. So Jessica, did you mention that?
I did not. Go right ahead, John.
We're working on a landing page as it relates to walk, bike, drive, and some statistics. I think it would be good if we all were on the same page of how many roads we have and how many stop signs we have and kind of an inventory type thing, as well as Chief Turner, how many accidents do we have a year? Approximately
800 a year.
800 traffic accidents in town.
Correct. The majority of those are non-injury, but probably 40% are.
Okay. And but to report stuff like that and to report on how many drunk driver arrests we have, and because Chief, do you have that number off the top of your head? If you had to guess.
50 to 60 DUI arrests a year.
That's a really substantial amount, again, considering our size. And so we want to work on a landing page where you can kind of have these quick facts. And the only other thing I would add to what Jessica was saying is we won't have this for the event on the 26th, but maybe for the event at the end of November, we've talked about if the committee does want to like set up a table and hand out information that we can actually have a tablecloth made up that says Town of Riverdale Park Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Advisory Committee. And so it's resident to resident communication there, and staff think that's really important.
I think that would be great. You can sign me up for both, Jessica. Not all day, but I have a cat who's about to make her appearance. Come on. Thank you.
I did want to share one last item, and this is something that I know Mike has brought up already, and that would be the table that has some of the emails that have come in through the safety email address. At our last meeting, I thought, wow, this is going to be a really short list because we may have had just one. But since that time, we've had quite a few comments and recommendations that have been sent in through the safety email address. And I'll share the table if you haven't had a chance to look at that. That was added later this afternoon. So that we could get as many of the comments that have come in, but they really run the gamut. And so the town can, some of the items the town can address right away, just like an issue where there was some overgrown bushes that were impacting line of sight, something very simple for us to resolve. And other things where we need to work with our community stakeholders. So there are items that we needed to report to the Purple Line team or reach out to Park and Planning, work with K-Fritz or in Riverdale Park Station. And there are some things that'll take us a little bit more time. We talked about the curb painting around fire hydrants. The police department is continuing to monitor some of the concerns that have been reported. So they are on that, and unfortunately having to write tickets sometimes, that's just how it works. And so this is all being worked on. And there's, like I said, a ton of comments recently. We have some that'll be addressed when we start working on the town center trail and parking lot redesign. So everything that's sent in goes somewhere and gets a response. Some responses are much quicker than others. It takes a little while for government to move in certain directions. So we have to follow our process and work with our community stakeholders as well.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us along because my phone just told me we have 15 minutes. So upcoming community meetings related to Natoli Place. I know there was some information added to the Dropbox that I asked Jessica to put in last minute that I thought was helpful. Just as was kind of, I found it in our emails, but it is a list of some of the things that are going on with the scope of the design projects.
So I think at the next meeting, we would like to bring our project manager. He's new to the town, and he will be able to talk a little bit more about the community outreach and engagement and the project in general. So we have 2 phases, and we're getting ready to move into phase 1, where we're collecting feedback from residents and stakeholders on the types of issues that we should consider, the types of things you'd like to see before we get into the design phase, anything you'd like to add related to these 2 specific projects. And so one of the thoughts we had was that going back to that resident to resident interaction is if the Walk, Bike, and Drive Advisory Committee would like to actually host the community meeting and manage that. And the way it's envisioned currently would be a presentation from the engineers just to kind of tell you where we are. They may have an activity, but it's really important that we engage the residents and get people there, and actually after the meeting make sure people are able to give feedback. So that would be something we'd like you to consider taking on as a committee. Of course, you'll have support from staff. It's not anyone taking on this by themselves, but this would be a really great opportunity if the committee's interested in doing that.
Thank you. I think that would be a
I've got something to say about this.
okay.
Since I'm the guy who pays the mortgage on Natoli Place, I sure is. I'd like to know more about this. I haven't been paying attention, obviously, and I think I need to be able to tell my residents about what's going on, and certainly encourage them.
I'm not able to hear you,
come
Mr.
out
York.
and find out about it. I said, since I'm the guy who pays the mortgage on Natoli Place, I want to know more about it. And I'd certainly like to be able to encourage my tenants on Natoli Place to come and hear about this. So please include me in all the information.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Yorker, one of the top of the list, because we considered all of the stakeholders that are in direct proximity to the project. So we have a list of different outreach we're going to do to get folks engaged in these two community meetings, which we envision happening in January.
Okay. So the community meetings will be in January?
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay. It's good to
That
know.
will not be the only time to provide input. That will not be the only time we'll ask for input. But those will be the two actual events where people can come in and provide that feedback in person or virtually.
Do we have any idea when in January?
So initially, I had envisioned the date that the committee has already chosen for their meeting on Monday. I think it's January the 13th. If everyone's already blocked that date off, we could certainly do that.
Okay,
But we haven't set the dates. That's something that we'll be doing in the coming weeks. So don't hesitate to let us know if there's something that works better for you. But we thought Monday night, it's not a council meeting night, and it is also a night that you probably already are planning to be doing walk, bike, drive advisory type things.
Right. Or be in Florida.
Or be in Florida. Hopefully not for these events, but you can join virtually. We've considered
I just turned 70. I want to be anywhere else but here. You know? I want to do the things I didn't do when I was working. So
Understood.
Even though I'm still working.
Understood.
All right. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Jeffrey. So those meetings will include Natoli Place, and does that also include the town center trail and parking lot?
They do both projects.
Okay. So I think that covers most of our agenda items. We try to leave time at the end of the meeting for public comments. Oh, I see Mike and Dan have their hands up again.
Mike should go first.
Okay, Mike.
Oh, Dan. Okay, I will. So one of the things about these kind of two projects, and I really applaud the linking of these two because they're really interrelated, is that and perhaps this is something that can be discussed as the project goes forward, but we've all spent time at this intersection, and it is very confusing, and I think most people find it very confusing to navigate. But to enhance the safety of, like, for instance, the pedestrians and the trail users, since they're the most kind of vulnerable, I think it's just really important to kind of think of these as like it's really one big confusing intersection, and the turning movements and all the conflicts that are caused by all the confusing turning movements, and there's traffic control for some and not for others, and there's I really think that this is possibly like one of the most important projects, because it's like a marquee project for the town to try to figure out how to look at this and redesign this in a way that enhances safety for everybody and understanding. And so I just thought I would just chime in that this is just a really, really important project, and I think it's a good idea for the committee to be actively involved in the public outreach. So just my support.
We couldn't agree more. And that's why we do have a pretty extensive plan on outreach. January meetings gives us more time to make people aware of the opportunities to provide input, because there's so many folks that are impacted by these areas and that use these areas and participate in different activities in these areas. So a lot of people in the town will be impacted, and we hope to hear a lot of great input.
Well, I would like to say, I hope there are physical notices posted, not just our regular communication outreach, but to have posters advertised, like at the farmers market potentially, or on a post there where there are frequent pedestrian crossings by town center market and the train parking lot and in the park. Dan?
And just to echo what Mike and Melissa already said, I agree with Mike's. We should be looking at these two projects together, as you know, it is a corridor and it is going to have a big impact. I think it would be helpful to know. I think helping facilitate the community sessions would be great for the committee to get involved in. I think it'd be helpful to know a little bit more around what the town staff and the project manager actually want us to do and how we should kind of think about shaping those. I hear Jeffrey's goal of getting to Florida and definitely empathize with it, but this does sound like the sort of thing where having an in-person option with actually kind of blown up diagrams of those intersections with an opportunity for people to add like comments in live time will really help. I think one, just seeing what other people are saying, but then two, this does seem like a very visual activity, and I don't know that like a Zoom call is going to be the best way for people to be able to interact with kind of the intersection and get an idea of like what's going on. So those are my couple thoughts.
We agree, and we anticipate having our town hall space available at that time. So it'll be a perfect opportunity to bring everyone together.
Does anybody else have any comments? Okay. So we have time for public comments if we have anyone who would like to speak. And I know we have had emails that have been added to the safety email list. Oh, Steve?
Hi there. I believe it was at the last Walk by Drive committee meeting. It was discussed the Riverdale Road Bridge replacement project and the associated trail crossing there that could be converted into a raised crosswalk. Seemed like committee members were generally in support. Wondering if there will be any action to draft a letter to the council or move to, I guess, get that support on the books in any way.
Is that something that, is the council aware of that, or is that something that we need to take action on from our committee?
From the staff, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I assume you'll say the same thing I was going to, but I brought it up at a council meeting and they suggested, hey, what a great topic to, weigh in from the Walk Bike Drive committee. So I believe they are anticipating a response from the committee.
That answers that question. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I think we talked about it briefly, and I think there was like a general tone of support for the suggestions that Steve flagged from the earlier plan that recommended this. And I know there was a couple other modifications that MDOT/SHA was willing to make in addition with the project. I guess this is a good example where it'd just be helpful just to hear a little bit about process. Like, does a committee member draft a letter and bring it to the next committee meeting for review? Do we run that past staff first? Like, as far as getting a letter to the council, what does staff want to see from the committee?
Well, I think to make it as simple as possible for the volunteers on the committee, if you just inform us of what you're in writing, what the recommendation of the committee is, then we can put that on an agenda and we can flesh that out. I don't think we would ask you to write a draft letter from the council to the state. We wait until the council receives your recommendation. They may tweak it, and then they'll direct staff to draft a letter on their behalf, and then the mayor would sign it. In some cases, I sign letters, but if it's to an elected official, then the mayor signs them. And
I'm sorry, that's helpful. I may have been using wrong terminology. So
That's
do
okay.
we write up something for the next meeting that we all vote on, and then that gets sent to council, and then you all act on it how you've done in the past with
Yeah.
or whatever. Do we need to have something for the rest of the committee to review at the next meeting and react to, or just a conversation and the minutes are sufficient? What do we need to do, I guess, to move it forward at the next meeting?
And just help me out here, but in my thought, it would be that you all would vote and it would be the position of the committee, as opposed to just discussion about something. Would that be correct, Jess?
I agree. Yeah, I think that's how that would work. So you would take an official position, that would be a motion and a vote, and then the staff could, if there isn't already a draft letter, staff can bring it forward to the mayor and council, based on the action that was taken by the committee.
Okay.
Can we go ahead and do that tonight? In 1 minute?
One clarifying question though that I have is the crossing itself the jurisdiction of the state and has to be tied to that project, or is the crosswalk right before the bridge actually the jurisdiction of the town, and that the town has the ability to put in a raised crosswalk without state approval?
It's, and Ivy, if I'm wrong on this, but we have jurisdiction over our roads and we can install raised crosswalks where the town decides to and where the town can afford to.
Okay, so just kind of differentiating between the SHA project and the bridge replacement and any input that we may want to provide there. It sounds like this specific issue that Steve brought up would actually just be internal to the town. So it would just be for the raised crosswalk at the trail crossing right before the bridge on Riverdale.
Well,
Am I-
the
So,
road
I'm
may
sorry.
be widening there.
Yeah, so Steve brought up the Discovery District plan recommended widening the sidewalk on the north side of the bridge to 10 feet to match the sidewalks that are going to be connecting to the bridge. And so initially, like MDOT's plan is for like an 8-foot sidewalk. It would be to expand it by like 2 feet. And then MDOT was willing, my understanding was willing to pay to add the raised crosswalk at the same time they do the bridge reconstruction. So even though it's in the town's right of way, they would consider it part of the improvements related to the bridge project. So they would be funding it, was kind of what I understood.
Okay, so I guess the question is a matter of priority. Do we feel so strongly and feel it's urgent that the town should go ahead and try to do that as part of the town's activity, or do we wait for the bridge improvement process to play out whenever that is? It sounds like it's been pushed out. So are we willing to have current stuff for 2 to 3 years before that construction process actually plays out? Or do we feel strongly enough that a raised crosswalk is needed and that we would suggest that the town actually take the initiative to do it ourselves? Is that a fair choice that we have here?
I revoke my earlier suggestion of voting on this tonight, but I would say
Okay.
that I would say we should still encourage MDOT to do it. If we want to do something in the interim, we go for it. But I would still support the committee reaching out to the council and saying, please follow up with MDOT, ask them for the wider sidewalk on the bridge and ask them to install the raised crosswalk. But I agree with you, Mike. We could probably look at doing it in the interim if it's going to be a 6-year before they get funding for it or something like that.
Yeah, this is just me like looking at always wanting to do things ourselves when we can. It's faster.
Well,
So-
and to that point, if I may, Ivy reviewed the projects that we came up with for fiscal 26. If that's a recommendation that the town does it, that could be a recommendation that project's added to fiscal 26 or fiscal 27 or fiscal 28 when we know more from the state, and put it in the mix. So I think the committee has different options that you all can think about and then decide what direction the committee wants to advise the council and the staff on.
Okay, do we want to, so is there an urgency to this? Or-
State funding looks like it's gonna be delayed for a while, so I don't think it's urgent that we can't discuss it at the next meeting or something, but others can chime in if I'm wrong.
So maybe we could actually have an official update on where that project is. I mean, I know where it is, but kind of an update on the project. Is there any more detail really to update us on besides what was just discussed? Or does that pretty much cover it? The funding's been pushed back from the state, and we may or may not want to do it on our own prior to their construction. So why don't we maybe put it on the list for Ivy to consider for the future projects for the budget? Unless the town feels strongly, and you guys can have that discussion with council about the value of doing it sooner rather than later. What budget year, or spending our money versus spending state money.
So I'm sorry, my understanding is MDOT SHA has already agreed that they'll do the raised crosswalk based on an earlier outreach from the town. When Steve looked at this plan, identified this recommendation for the wider sidewalk, he reached out to the MDOT SHA engineer, and they said, we will add the widened sidewalk as well.
Okay.
We just need to hear from the town. So I think that is like the piece that's up in there from MDOT's perspective. Like, they're already planning to do the raised sidewalk or crosswalk at the trail crossing. It's a question of whether or not they'll add this widened sidewalk on the north side. And it will potentially narrow the shoulder buffer slightly, but it seems like they're going to add sidewalks on both sides, so there'll be a little bit more distribution of the students. But right now, if you go after school, that sidewalk is packed with kids, and I don't see any reason not to encourage them to do a wider sidewalk on the north side. So I guess just for process, like, they're already planning to do the crosswalk. I think if the town wants to do that earlier, that'd be great. But I think we still have to encourage the council to reach out to MDOT and on the sidewalk aspect, and encourage them to pursue that as well.
Mike, did you have something to add? You're on mute. But your hand
I was
is-
just gonna say, I mean, I know we're just a little bit over, but I mean, could we go ahead and just simply ask the committee what their disposition is on writing a letter to convey exactly what Dan just said? Write a letter to the town council.
I
So
support it.
can we go ahead and take a motion on that without that being specifically on the agenda? Or is that a public notice issue?
No, I don't think there's any public notice issue.
Okay, I move that we write a letter to the council to encourage them to support the widened sidewalk and the raised crossing of the trail bridge at Riverdale Road, bridge on Riverdale Road.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to drag this out, but I think what I heard was we don't even have to write a letter. We can just make a motion now to let council know that we recommend the widened sidewalk, and then at the next.
Oh, okay.
We'll bring that to them at the council, and they'll draft the letter and tweak it how they see fit is what I love. So
And
I would just recommend we do that. Just
Is that all we need to do?
yes,
Okay,
and then we would add it to the council agenda for council discussion.
so would it be added to, it won't be added to Monday's agenda at this point,
No.
will it? Okay,
No,
so would you like to amend your motion, Mike?
No, I want Dan to make a motion, and then
Okay. or
be happy to second.
sorry, Mike. I move that the committee recommend that the council draft a letter to MDOT SHA encouraging them to include a widened sidewalk on the northern side of the bridge consistent with the Discovery District plan recommendations.
There's a second.
Second.
Thank you both for getting that done.
We need to take a vote
So,
or no?
Yes.
yeah, okay, so we will, do we still have a, yeah, do we still have a quorum?
We do.
Yeah, you have 5 members.
Okay. So everyone who would like to support the recommendation for staff to write the letter, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Is that good enough?
We'll add it to the council agenda.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Can I ask who seconded the motion? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Mike
Mike.
did.
Mike, got it. Thank you.
And with that, unless there are other comments, questions? A little bit late, but not too bad. So thank you everyone for your time, and thank you for sure for town staff. We appreciate your after hours work.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Sincerely.
Do we need a
Thank
motion
you.
to adjourn, or can we just adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Second. Thank you,
Aye.
everybody.
Lots of
Appreciate
seconds.
it.
Hammer,
Right.
we're adjourned.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Night.
Good night.